Race 3 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. The road to Pyeongchang continues at the 2010 Winter Olympic venue. We're in beautiful BC in Whistler, high above Vancouver, the host city. Hello everybody, welcome back to the second deciding heat of the final race in North America. I'm Martin Haven, alongside me Canada's Elizabeth Archer, who raced in yesterday's encounter. And Liz, the men's race no less wild. We got an interesting top three.
Yeah, for sure. It's really exciting to see Dave Precision in the top three position, and it's nice to see that he's kind of getting back into his form on his new Schneider sled.
Well, he lies in third place. Great run from him, but the top two are perhaps more familiar names.
Nikita Trebugov is only 22 years old, and he came up with a great run. A little bit skiddy, and so we'll be looking to improve on that and hunt down Sungbin Yoon of Korea.
Well, normally among the fastest starters, he was fifth fastest out of the blocks. Fastest man on the ice at the start and all the way down. Last year's winner.
Sungbin Yoon had an incredible run and a new track record. He had an incredible start, incredible run. Number one on the start, number one at the finish.
Number one in your hearts. There you go, the Korean who won here last year and won in Park City last week. And where, then, you ask, is Martins Dukos? Is he ill? No, he's here. He's in 8th position behind brother Thomas. Now, they finished in the reverse order a couple of years ago. Martins won, Thomas was second. We've had three different winners in the last 3 years. 3 years ago, Frank Rommel. 2 years ago, Martins Dukos. Last year, Sungbin Yoon. So Sungbin looking to double up here and in this season's World Cup. Barrett Martineau will be first off. He was 20th in the first heat. Everybody outside the top 20 joins the fans trackside to watch what's going on, including USA's Greg West and John Daly. Big surprises at that end of the field. Some surprises in our top 20 as well. And Dave Krejceshin looking to try and build on that first heat advantage and maybe even challenge for the silver medal. And that's for Martins Dukos. It was kind of a wild ride from him, wasn't it? Maybe he tried something that just didn't pay off.
Yeah, maybe his setup was more for the training ice that was a little bit warmer, a little bit softer, and so he just didn't have the control and the relaxedness that he usually has.
You saw Axel Junk in the yellow jersey, very disappointed with his first run. There's Thomas Dukos, quicker than his brother. And there is Vladislav Hareskevich of the Ukraine, who had another top 20 run. He'll be second off. Martins Dukos is a man who thinks a lot about what he's doing and rarely has two bad runs together. And we'll see what the second heat brings. Barrett Martineau, first off, will be hoping for much better in his second run. Then Vladislav Hareskevich of the Ukraine. Nick Timmings, the two Timmings twins, easy for me to say, were both here. And Nick made the heat, his brother didn't. In the 10, well, Alex Hansen in 11th place, Rhys Thornberry in 12th. Both have a top 10 potential here in the second heat. It's race 3 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. A little bit of sweeping on another grey, drizzly day. And Liz, you described this place in the first heat as not just the fastest track on ice, but also a track that actually is kind of built in a bit of a rainforest.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the track workers earlier this week, and he's like, why did they choose to make a track in a rainforest?
Well, that's what they had. Barrett Martineau, the first of our sliders, trying to improve on his first heat. 4:66 is a fractionally slower start. We saw that in the women's race, the start area not quite as quick. And at the line, 52.98. Well, that is a second, pretty much quicker than his first heat. He'll be a little happier with that.
I think he should be very pleased with that run. It was a bit of a bummer on the first, but he came out fighting, and that's what we wanted to see. In corner 16, he wasn't headed to the roof like he was on that first run.
Well, if you have a poor first run, there's lots of room to improve. Oh, there's Mummy.
Yeah, Rita's grabbing the sleds at the bottom of the track. She'll do everything for the athletes.
She cooks for them, she bakes for them, she humps the sleds for them. She was sweeping the track here in training when it snowed the other day as well. Rita is a proper athlete's mum. Well, Barrett Martineau doesn't exactly look overjoyed. And that first run has basically put a big kink in his day. Next up is Vladislav Hareskevich. So Martineau, the leader, And Heraskevich, his first heat advantage is 11/100ths of a second. Now, we saw last week in Park City in slightly tricky weather conditions, he was off early in the second heat, having come from just behind to get into the second heat by 200ths in the final corner. And then he kind of hung out in the leader's box. He clung on like a limpet as others failed to match his pace.
He laid it down in that second run in Park City, and we'll see what he can do here today.
Another one of our young sliders, his first World Cup season. So this is only his third World Cup race.
He was at the Youth Olympic Games, and that's kind of where his career started for him. A bit of a stumble onto the sled as he gets ready for curve 1.
486, 493 in the first heat. That's a big improvement on his start.
He should be really happy with that. I know he's not the strongest on the start, but he is doing his best to improve and get stronger and faster.
Well, he came out of weightlifting, mixed martial arts and power sports, so that doesn't require a huge amount of leg speed. This does.
A lot of height on the exit of 6, and then you see that flop and the extra bounce. Tap on the slider's left-hand side.
Well, we saw in the first heat that everybody who avoided the walls pretty much went quickly. So let's see if he can do that. Just a little brush into 13. This is a good-looking run again. He's still in the red, though, behind Barrett Martineau.
Barrett had it 3 kilometers faster at the bottom of the track, so it'll be really hard for him to get him at the end.
All right, so he drops into second spot. Bear in the leader's box for the moment. 52.98 in the first heat would have left Barrett Martineau in 11th place, just behind Matthias Guggenberger and Alex Hansen. So if he'd had a couple of those...
Yeah, it would have put him in a bit better place. Kind of that bump off the exit of corner 6 put Vlad in a bit of a hairy situation. Got a little bit away from him in corner 12 as he bumps that left wall into curve 13. He was a bit squirrely on the first run here as well, but he seems to get it back a little bit better.
Yeah, had a real scorpion kick going in the first run, so he tidied that up. And again, every time you come down this track, you learn a little bit more about it. Well, Dean Timmings didn't make the second heat. He's holding the sled for twin brother Nick. I can tell the difference because it says so on the screen, also on the helmet. Also, Dean's got a bit more of a beard going on than Nick has. Other than that, you're as lost with them as the twin sisters in the Swiss bobsleigh team.
Definitely. Looking at them side by side. Oh, a little bit of a slip. His hand just missed the saddle as he loaded onto the sled. A really cool thing about Nick and Dean is they're so supportive of each other. As his brother was holding the sled on the start line, they're super excited for each other.
Well, for both of them, this is a 4th World Cup start. They don't always start the same races. In fact, this might be the first time they've both been on the same race, apart from maybe Eagles.
An early hit out of corner 6 on the left-hand side kind of puts him a little bit awkward into corner 7, but he fixes it really nicely.
4,200 back, though.
Barrett had a really good run because he came out fighting. He knows this track and he wants to improve.
And this is exactly the opposite of what Nick had in the first heat. He had a much better run than Dean. And this is more like his brother's first run. And he sags to a second behind, 1.21 at the line, 54.31. Well, like Vladislav Heraskevich last week, that second heat run from Barrett Martineau could keep him into the leader's box until we get close to the top 10.
I totally agree with that, especially on this track. You can have a great run on the first one, and then the second, who knows what will happen. We saw it with Jacqueline Lowling yesterday.
How hard is it to find consistency at a place like this?
It's really difficult because not everyone has the run volume here to get that consistency.
Yeah, just overshot that handle as he was crossing hands. And that's the danger, really, with the one-handed start. It is so much faster than pushing the wheelbarrow with 2 hands.
Yeah, it's something you have to practice in the summer to get that body control to move from one hand to the next hand back onto the sled.
And Miran Bell of Spain. Yeah, you wonder how you can practice push starting in the summer. Well, that's exactly why you just heard explained. 17th after the first heat, and his advantage over Barrett Martineau is 1800ths of a second. So.
And Anders, not the quickest starter, but he sure can drive this track very, very well. He's getting more comfortable and relaxed with his Bromley equipment, and Martin Ruddle has been able to really coach him to some great results. A little bit middle into corner 6, might give him a bit of extra height on the exit, but fixed it very, very nicely.
We had such a neat and tidy looking first heat, didn't he? Not the sort of wild wall banging that we saw from some of the slightly quicker sliders. So maybe he's just gone for that control on the runners. Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, a little bit of not control on the exit of corner 11, but he recovers very nicely. It'll be hard to get that speed that Barrett had at the bottom of the track.
Yeah, he's gone 1300s down, 140 miles an hour is 87 miles an hour. And across the line, he went from 200s up to 3800s back, but he's in second spot to Barrett Martineau. Made the cut again here in Whistler, continuing his run of form from last season.
He kind of took the exit that Barrett had on his first run in corner 16, really close to that roof, probably hitting the roof and coming back down very, very aggressively.
Oh, still got a smile on his face, this time less jubilant than in the first heat. There you go.
But he's still smiling, and he always is when he comes off the track. A lot of height, exit of 11, a bit of a skid into corner 12. But he prepares to fix it really nicely. Here into corner 16, late, and it's okay first pressure, but just lets it get away from him on the second.
You've got to kind of try and hold the sled up as it tries to drop down, haven't you, and keep that sort of relatively stable parabola. Next up is Jack Thomas of the UK. British slider started 9th fastest in the field, 461. And this is the first time he's made the cut this season, which will be a great relief to him and a big confidence boost, hopefully.
Yeah, it's really great to see him in the top 20 and continuing to improve here. He had a bit of a crappy start last year with popping the groove, but he's really improved and pushed a 6.2, which is only 100 slower than his first run, so he's got to be very excited with that.
Well, now, will he have gone for trying to be conservative in the first heat to try and make the cut and then maybe free it up a little bit and try and find some speed in the second run now he's in the field?
I think we'll see that up with a lot of the athletes that are really going to be giving it for the second run and trying to move up a couple of places.
Especially when you haven't made the cut yet this season, you know, that starts to become a real focus. He's in the green, 2300s down from 2900s.
We'll see what happens at the bottom of the track. Barrett had a phenomenal speed, and here Jack's hitting a bit of the pain train and just a little bit off his line.
3 miles an hour slower, 77.2 miles an hour, 83.7 as he gets into Thunderbird.
He had a massive skid, 15-16, and that's a real time killer.
And he drops to 4th place at the moment, behind Vladislav Heraskevich.
A little bit confused and a little bit upset. That's really hard, 15-16. You don't really realize how much speed is killed in that curve.
You could certainly hear the speed going away, but he made the cut. So disappointed to lose spots in the second heat.
Lots of height here, the exit of corner 11. He taps on the right-hand side and skids, and that just sets you up really poorly for the bottom of the track, and it's hard to get back on your line. Another hit and a bit of a skid on the exit of the curve.
Well, out of shiver, there's no room to recover down almost until Thunderbird. So Barrett Martineau leads from Ander Mirambel and Vladislav Heraskevich. First 5 of our 20 sleds down. Race 3 of the Men's Skeleton World Cup. The man in the red jacket holding the sled is sled builder Richard Bromley. There's your race leader. Richard Bromley holding the sled for the second of the Korean athletes in our field. Jisoo Kim came into the World Cup for the first time in Lake Placid. This is his 3rd World Cup start. Wasn't expected to be in the program, but his teammate injured himself pre-season and didn't make the selection for World Cup.
4:53, that's a phenomenal start, and that's really good to see from this Korean athlete. And this is a driver's track, so it's kind of a little bit hard if you have a quick start to be able to get the feeling and the flow. So we'll see what he does in the rest of the run.
4:53 identical to his first start, only 1 man quicker, and that was teammate Sung Bin Yoon.
That really shows the depth in the program on the starting side, and to be able to come out and hopefully drive a clean run.
Well, he certainly starts a lot faster than Han-Sin Lee, who has been their 2nd World Cup representative. I think he might be cementing his place in this team this year.
Yeah, this guy is really fighting for his Olympic spot. They're trying to get those 2 spots for the Olympic Games, and with the new sleds from Richard, that's really helping solidify that.
1900s behind. Has he got anything at the line? Into 2nd place behind Barrett Martineau.
Barrett Martineau really had an awesome second run, and he's going to be fighting for moving up more spots.
Yeah. Well, Jisoo Kim, 53.59 in the first heat, 53.60 in the second.
Just a quick tap on the left-hand side before corner 7, and that just sends you so high. You really got to fight hard not to get that flop. He has a little bit as he heads into corner 8, I guess, and then a tap on the left before hitting corner 9.
Doesn't he kind of look like Sunbin Yundik 2 or 3 years ago when we first met him in the World Cup? You know, he could be a massive threat for Korea in another 12 months, certainly 24. Next up for Great Britain is Dom Parsons. 474 getaway, 27th in a field of 30 off the starting blocks, and that is not where he needs to be.
No, he'll be really looking to improve on that start for this run.
Well, teammate Jackie Narracott finished, or teammate, no, girlfriend Jackie Narracott finished the race for Australia yesterday. A little happier with Whistler than at the beginning of the week. Let's see if Dom goes the same way.
He improved a couple hundredths, and I think he'll be a little bit happy with that, but obviously as an athlete, you're never satisfied with your results. He created his own shoes as well. He took a spike plate from a different pair of shoes and put them on a track spike plate so he could make the exact shoe that he wanted.
Everything is about tailoring it to the athlete to make you as comfortable as possible. They always say every game is won in the 5 inches between the ears.
Exactly, and that was a very nice exit out of corner 7. A lot better than his first run. A little bit of height on corner 11, but controls it nicely.
It's a little skid into 12, doesn't hit too hard into Holke's 50-50.
Puts a bit of a flop, though. We'll see what his speed is. 140 kilometers. Barrett was quite a bit quicker there.
Yeah, in trouble in 16. He was 37 hundredths up.
500.
Wow, that is really tight, and it all went away below the Gold Rush Trail, really.
Yeah, he had put together a really nice run, but just a little bit too much height in corner 12 kind of sent him a bit squirrely into corner 13.
And once you're behind there, it's like any S's anywhere, like any of the labyrinths. They all lead so quickly into each other that you just can't correct in time. So good top half, but here
we see the extra height, and he just taps into corner 13, and he drops a runner on the exit, which is a little bit odd and a bit squirrely into the rest of the track.
Well, he just deposes Barrett Martineau by 0.05 of a second. Barrett moving up 6 spots after the first heat. Another Canadian on the ice. Had you guessed that? I guess you probably had. This is Kevin Boyer. Bill and Mark, his mum and dad, are both here watching at the track. First time they've been here, I gather. And that Native American representation of the beaver on the helmet. Really individual look.
Kevin Boyer is from Sherwood Park, Alberta, so just outside of Edmonton. One of the, I think, is the biggest hamlet, is what it's called. He's very proud to be from there. Massive Edmonton Oilers fan.
Never mind.
Sorry.
I know not of what I speak. It was a throwaway comment. Nice looking start so far, and a nice looking controlled run as well.
Yeah, he's really looking comfortable here. A bit of a flop, but he controls it nicely and doesn't hit into corner 7.
You've seen a lot worse off 7.
Oh, that's a beautiful 7 to 9. Let's hope he can push the speed down to the bottom of the track.
Now, if he keeps this alive out of 11, then he's going to be accelerating really hard. 42 hundredths up, tiny rub into 13, wild on the exit.
But he had massive speed out of corner 11. Let's see what he does here. 140.5, a little bit lower.
Second up, 87.3 miles an hour at the bottom. 5.290, half a second up. That is a good run. Now, Barrett Martineau, 52.98. He's done a 52.90 compared to a 53.31. So that's 41 hundredths.
There's his mummy and daddy.
And that's why they're on the helmet. And we talk about this, I say this every week. Bank of mum and dad, single biggest influence on any athlete in their entire life. Because taking them to training, waking up at God knows what time in the weekends, that's what gets them on the road.
And his parents put so much into him for this season, and they're so happy and so proud to be here. A little bit too much height on the exit of 13, but he corrects it so nicely for the bottom of the track.
52.90 would have been a top 10 run in the first heat. I'm not quite sure the track is as fast as it was in the first heat. We'll wait and see. Lots of yellow jackets at the top. Anna Fernstedt there. Tina Hermann, yesterday's winner as well in the far end of the lineup there. You can see Jacqueline Lurling, all supporting Axel Jung. Now, Axel had a horrible start to the race, but a really nice trip down the track. Somehow he managed to put that behind him, and he could produce another really quick second run.
Axel Axel will be looking to move up. He was not happy with his first run. He was really quite angry. Much better load, relaxed onto the sled, and we'll see what he can do here.
Well, he took the bronze medal last week in Park City, and you know what cursed him in the first heat? I happen to mention that he has never, in his entire World Cup career, finished out of the top 10, so of course his first run was 13th.
I'm glad you said that, not me, so he won't be angry at me.
He will still. So he's in the lead now, 1700s over Kevin Boyer, but he does need a really nice run. He got a decent start. He might have been a fraction conservative, but all the same, he knows how to get the pace.
He had a little bit of a hit a little bit earlier, but it's okay. A little bit of extra height here, trying not to hit in the corner 12. Tiny scuff, he's going to hit again.
Just about avoided the wall, 2400s up, the gap's holding steady, 0.2 of a second over Kevin Boyer, and avoids the wall. He's going to take the lead and may well move up into the top 10 to keep that run alive.
He'll be a bit happier with that run for sure. I know he was super frustrated.
52.75 would have left him in 7th place in the first heat, much more where he would expect to be.
A little bit of too much height on the exit of corner 6, but he fixes it very nicely as he heads into 7. Tiny scuff, but he really recovers very nicely in his focus for the rest of the corner. They take a lot of height on the exit of 11 generally, but he was able to almost avoid that wall, but took a scuff just on the entry.
Do the guys have a slightly different line because the extra height, weight, mass, the whole thing is just accelerating faster and steering different?
A little bit, but also generally they steer more with their knees, where for me, for example, I steer with my toe and I can be a bit more aggressive in that corner.
Matthias Guggenberger of Austria tied for 10th place with Alex Hansen of Norway. Two nations that have held Winter Olympic Games in the last few years. Well, a while since Eagles in Austria was the Olympic venue, but twice an Olympic host city.
And Matthias Guggenberger has really gotten a bit more competitive this year. He had knee surgery and he's starting to come back from that, and he starts being competitive again. His equipment's competitive again that he created himself.
He had surgery in a hospital in Innsbruck, and Thomas Dukos was having the same operation, and Gugi got him to come down and have it at the same time in the same hospital, and they recuperated together.
At least I guess when you're injured it's nice to have someone with you.
Yeah, Days of Thunder crotch racing up the corridors apparently was going on. Well, he's just dropped behind Axel Jung and lightly behind Kevin Boyer. There's only 1800s between them. So this is, now can he hold it together? Coming back, 1300s behind. Tiny rub on the wall, pinballs up the straight, gets to within a 10th. Little ripple of applause from Axel Jung, not exactly overjoyed with his day so far.
No, this track is so difficult. It's frustrating when something happens so quick, so early on the track, and having to refocus to be able to drive the rest of it. It's a bummer, but that's racing for you. You never know what's going to happen on race day.
Yeah.
He's going to have a little bit of extra height here, kind of a flop, but recovers very nicely. Tiny scuff on the left wall.
So Matthias Guggenberger is in 2nd, Kevin Boyer in 3rd, and Axel Jung is still our race leader. There he is in the yellow jacket. 10 sleds down, 10 to go here. Axel Jung trying to move up into the top 10. We have 10 remaining in the final race of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup in North America. There's a fantastic view of the track, predominantly lighter grey, covered by the roof, and the access road that meanders up and down this valley. I mean, it's a pretty steep valley, and as a result, they've got a pretty steep track. I mean, it builds speed almost from the moment you leave the blocks, Liz.
Definitely, and it's a very narrow track. Like, there's a lot of quick switchbacks on a very steep descent.
Well, Axel Jung of Germany, not exactly smiling. Teammates Jacqueline Lerling and Tina Hermann, the race winners and bronze medalist yesterday. A few more athletes up at the top watching the action.
Yeah, that was Alex Hansen's physio that was at the top of the track. And here's the newly renamed Holke's 50-50. Steve Holcomb originally named that corner 50-50, and it's, yeah, recently named Holke's 50-50.
Yeah. It was even more of a challenge in the warm-up for the Olympic Games, and after training one night, Holcomb and his team made up a little sign on cardboard with a marker, went up and pinned it above on the hoarding above the track. And essentially a shot was the 2006 Olympic women's skeleton champion Maja Pedersen, and that stage sliding for Switzerland. Married the man on the left, Snorre Pedersen, became a Norwegian athlete, and has recently returned to the ice, started sliding again last season.
She missed sliding and she missed competing, so she thought, why not?
Well, she's had a couple of kids back home and now back on the ice. There's Kristen Bromley on the left-hand side. World champion, World Cup champion and European champion in the same season. The first man ever to do that in men's skeleton. Martins Dukos has done that a couple of times since then, but Kristen Bromley, seasons of seasons. There's a familiar face. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Daddy.
Yeah. Silver Fox, no hat for Jeff Varche. Final 10 sliders to go, race 3 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup, and we kick off our top 10 with an unfamiliar face in this elevation. It's Alex Hansen of Norway. Well, Hansen tied for 10th place with Austria's Matthias Guggenberger, had an excellent first run. Martin Haven and Elizabeth Varche of Canada watching the action, and if he can hold it together, this could be a big day of days for him, Liz.
Definitely, and honestly, making the top 20 is a big day for him as well. He had back surgery a couple years back, so he's been working really hard to get, or hip surgery, trying to work to get his start back.
26th in Lake Placid, 31st in Park City. What a difference a week makes. No matter what happens on this run, if he holds his place or slips a little down the order, it'll still be comfortably his best World Cup performance.
Yeah, and that's really great to see. I think he's going for broke on this run, and he's a little bit looser and just trying to let the track do its thing, but it's giving him a couple more hits and skids than he had in his first run. Yeah, slipping away, 4 tenths behind the leader, now nearly 6 tenths behind. Not a bad exit out of 16, but the damage was done, and a 74 hundredths of a second deficit. He slips 3 places, 4th at the moment, so he won't hang on to that top 10 finish necessarily, but still in his 3rd ever World Cup start, he has shown real notice of intent. And this is a career best result, so he will have to be happy with that.
Tomorrow, just not now.
Just a little bit too much height on the exit of corner 4, and his elbows pop up and gets a bit skiddy. A little bit too much height on the exit of 6. He really just was letting the sled go, and sometimes that's what happens.
Well, great looking helmet, great looking suits as well from the Quick Skins company of former skeleton Olympian Deanna Panting. And here is Rhys Thornbury of New Zealand, another great looking helmet livery.
Also done by the Canadian artist Jay Bow. He did mine, he's done Alex Hansen's, he's done tons.
Well, there is Don Parsons. He's got a little Iron Man face mark to greet Sun Bin Young, I think, perhaps, with our current leader, Axel Jung. Now, what can Rhys Thornbury do? 9th in the first heat off the 11th fastest start. It was a really good, tidy-looking drive.
Yeah, but he did have that kind of minor pop on the first run, so he's wanting to kind of relax into that, and he didn't pop on the second run, so that's really good. Massive improvement.
So the time between the start clocks is the same, but the speed coming into corner 1 is probably greater. 41.8, just a fraction behind Axel Jung in terms of pace. 28 hundredths up from 35 at the start.
And he's really relaxing with this run. Tiny skid. Toes are going all the way, dancing on the ice, trying to get that back.
The gap over Axel Jung has come right down to 900. He'll be in the red next time he is, so he's not going to hang on in front of the German.
He doesn't have the speed out of corner 11, and he's a bit squirrely on this run.
Well, Axel's 52.75 should have left him in the top 6, not in 12th place. Rhys Thornbury ties him for the lead. That is epic. Well, the man from Altenburg celebrates as the man, not the Man of Steel, that's Superman, this is the Iron Man. And of course, that is the helmet livery of Sun Bin Young.
Rhys will be very excited with that. Oh, he's cheering already. His wife is here, his puppy's here, so he's got quite the support crew.
Well, if your puppy's there, then it's got to be a good day.
Regardless of what happens on the track. A tiny tap into corner 7, but you'll see he drops his toe, brings it back normal, and is ready for the exit. A little bit of an elbow pop out, but it's back in for the straight.
Yeah, much less rugby player and much more Martins Dukos on both of those runs. That's a really, really good run from Rhys Thornbury. He is the joint leader with Axel Jung with 8 to go. Oh, and here is Martins Dukos. Those phrases don't normally go together. 8 to go, and here is Martins Dukos. Beaten last weekend into the silver medal position by Sun Bin Young. He won the season opener in Lake Placid. Our reigning world champion.
He'll be definitely giving it all to try to move up in the ranks. This is not a familiar position for Martins, like you said.
Well, 4:56, 4:57 start in the first heat, so it's not the start that was the issue. It was just wild on the way down, which is so unlike him.
Yeah, it just got away from him a little bit, so maybe he dropped his rock and had a little bit more control.
Already 4,600s up.
This is more what we're used to seeing from Martin Stukers, a clean run.
4,400s up. The gap is growing over Axel Jung. Don't forget, Axel was in 12th after the first heat, Martins in 8th.
Great speed out of corner 11. He took that tap again on the pain train. It just kind of sets you up poorly for the bottom of the track.
81 miles an hour and still accelerating hard. Down at the bottom, top speed, 89 miles an hour. His was 87.9, so half a second up still. So Rhys Thornberry had one sled in the lead, and it was the master, Martins Dukurs.
Yeah, he took a bit of a crazy line in corner 16, but he's able to still come ahead.
Well, that was only 700s quicker than Axel Jung, so that was still not top draw Martins Dukurs stuff.
Yeah, coming off corner 12, hitting into 13, it just sets you up so poorly, and it's so hard to get back on your line.
You can hear the Latvian fans as ever cheering their hero.
They show up everywhere. There's Latvian fans everywhere.
Yep, absolutely right. And he is a massive national superstar. Whether you live in Latvia, like the 2.5 million people that do, or live elsewhere, they all know him. FES sled for Germany's Christopher Groothaer. FES, the Berlin sled builders, sleds for bobsled and for skeleton. And Chris Groothaer, 25 years old, race winner in Altenburg last January. This is his 3rd race here in Whistler.
He knows how to drive difficult tracks. You just got to relax into it and let the sled do its thing.
4:61 starts, that's not bad, quicker than his first heat.
A 400th improvement, and that's really good to see. A little bit of a flop off of corner 2, but if you relax, it's fine.
400ths of a second the lead. It was 1400s when he sat down.
It's going away from him a little bit. That's hard. Martins Dukurs put down a really great run.
Well, normally, if you're Christopher Groothaer or anybody else, you start the second heat before Martins Dukurs has been on ice, and so you don't have that to be compared against. This is almost like a first heat where Dukurs has set the bar and everybody else looks slow by comparison.
We've got to see what happens at the bottom of the track here, because Martin was a little bit messy, so we'll see. And
he's really hanging on in there. Only 400s back. He's tying with Martins Dukurs. Christopher Groothaer hits the wall. Is he in front at the line? He is. 52.73, not as quick as Martins, but he had more pace in the first heat, and he was 1900s in front, remains 1400s up on Dukurs. Normally, that would mean you've just won your 2nd career race. Here, not so.
He took a little bit of a smaller hit on the exit of 16, and I think that really helped him to be able to stay in the lead. A little bit too much height on the corner of 11, but handles it well. He doesn't quite hit into corner 12, a bit of a skid, but really handles it well. A lot flatter than Martins was, so he doesn't really take a massive hit there.
Well, that was a good second run from Christopher Groothaer. He was tied in 6th position with Thomas Dukurs. He sandwiched between the two Dukurs brothers. So now he's beaten Martins for the 2nd trip. Let's see if he can hold on as Thomas Dukurs has his shot at trying to move up into the medals. 6500s off the lead in the first heat. Bronze was 5800s off, so 700s of a second between Martins Dukurs and the medal in heat 1. It's not impossible he could be in the medals at the end of this race.
That was a 600th improvement on his start, but took a little bit of a tap out of corner 1. He's really going to have to be clean on this run to move ahead of Christopher Groothaer.
Yeah, 4:67 first start, 18th in the field, very unlike Thomas.
Yeah, very unlike him, and he was the previous track record holder.
He's having a nice classic Dukurs run here, nice and smooth, little rough, 8 into 9.
And a little bit of height in corner 9. We'll see what happens in the corner of 11. He's pretty clean on the exit.
A 10th ahead of Christopher Groothaer, but it was 1600, so the gap is coming down.
He has the speed. We'll see what happens if he hits. He'll be close at the
A
finish
little
line.
hit, but Grotier had one as well. 400s, 52.69. So 2 trips down the fastest track on the planet, where they're fringing 90 miles an hour. And there are 400ths of a second between the two of them over 2 runs. And that's the sort of consistency that you have to stay at the top of this game.
And there was his dad grabbing his sled. Nice, clean lines here. Was really letting the sled go on the bottom of the track, but able to control it very, very nicely.
A real family operation. Denis Ducours designs the sleds, builds the sleds, works on them with the brothers, coaches them, runs the track in Sigulda.
He does it all.
Yeah, he really does. So Thomas Ducours, the race leader, with 5 to go. And now we get into medal contention. Thomas Ducours, Christopher Grotier, Martins Ducours, the top 3, 5 to go.
Alexander Gasner is from Winterberg, Germany, and that's a really cool thing because we're headed there next. He has 2 puppies back home and his girlfriend.
Okay, I'm not sure which is more important, obviously, there. But great shot there of the runners. There's the rock. There's that rocking chair bow on the runners. And you can see as he moves it backwards and forwards how it seesaws backwards and forwards. And you use the body to put pressure on the front or on the back to steer through the corners. 466 getaway, good start from the man who was 5th in the first heat, exactly to the 100th identical, but he clipped the wall going into 1.
A little bit of a flop off of corner 2. He needs to just relax and get into the groove of this track to be able to accelerate at the bottom of the track and get ahead of Thomas Ducours.
He has 300ths of a second in hand over Ducours from the first heat. That's all gone.
He laid down a very nice run on the first run, but he's just bleeding a little bit of time. He's now 1700ths back.
We started 500 slower than Thomas, so that little start disadvantage, he's now undoing that. He's coming back, he's still in the red. Now, can the FES sled find speed down here that the Ducours didn't? Again, high and low through the apexes at the line. Still 1400s back. 52.86 compared to his 52.61 first heat, so he'll be disappointed not to go as quick as he did on the first run.
He just didn't have the speed at the bottom of the track. He'll be pretty frustrated with that. The run was actually pretty nice. It just maybe was too conservative with his setup.
Only 2 or 3 athletes have gone faster, and those are ones that had uncharacteristically rubbish first runs.
Here he is on his start, going as fast as you can. You can see the sled moving a little bit left and right. Loads nice and quiet and gets ready.
You can see by the debris they have recut the groove for the second run to make sure that everybody has a fair chance. Alexander Gasser with a bit of a smile on his face. He's in second place with 4 to go, so it's top 6 guaranteed. Not sure quite what the German Olympic criterion are. I know that 5th place yesterday was enough for Mariama Yamanka to book herself a spot. Here's Matt Antoine of the USA. Olympic bronze medalist. There's your current leader, Thomas Ducours of Latvia. Matt Antoine took the bronze here 12 months ago, in fact 10 months ago.
He really enjoys this track, and he has been struggling with his start after having knee surgery, but he's starting to get more and more faster every single year.
464. Now, he was 100th out of the medals in the first heat. A medal again for Matt Antoine on this track is a definite possibility.
Let's see if he can generate enough speed at the bottom of the track to really pull ahead. It's a bit of a late entrance into corner 6. He's going to have some extra height there.
On fire last year at the start of the season, bronze here, went on to silver in Lake Placid the next week. The first 2 races, though, haven't produced the same this year, 8th and 12th.
Yeah, it hasn't been the start that the Americans were wanting for this Olympic season. It's a bit of a bummer for sure.
And he's 3,700s back. He's going to slip way out of medal contention. This is going to leave Thomas Ducours on the fringes of the medals. Ducours will lead Matt Antoine across the line, only 5th. That was the 10th fastest run of the 15-16 sleds we've seen so far. So that was a really unfortunate loose run.
Yeah, I think, again, he had a bit too much of a conservative setup, and maybe when it was a little bit colder this morning, it really worked well for him, but as it's warming up during the day, it's going to be a little bit harder. Little bit too much height here on the exit of 6, but controls it very nicely and knows he can get away with it if he relaxes into the sled.
Well, that run would have left him 12th in the first heat, so it's sort of the opposite of what we saw from Axel Junk, who was 12th and came up with a better second run. Matt's gone the opposite way. They've sort of crossed in the middle. Thomas Ducours leads, 3 to go. A chance of a medal here for Canada with Dave Cheshin, the school teacher from Brompton, Ontario. Got married during the summer. He and his wife disappeared and got married and didn't tell anybody for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, they just ran away. We didn't even know they were engaged, and all of a sudden they're married.
There you were. Social media told us everything we needed to know. So here's a chance for the Grits. Long toe steer into one, 4:67 start.
That's about the same as he had as the first run. He needs to really relax into this run. He knows this track better than anyone. He's had probably more runs than anyone here.
0.08 of a second behind current leader Thomas Ducours. And Ducours was 0.07 behind him after the first heat. So Grizz needs to find that pace and that control at the bottom of the track here.
He had a similar flop in the first run out of corner 6, and he seemed to control it very, very well.
Best ever World Cup performance was here, 5th position last year in December 2016.
He had a bit of a hit onto the on-take of corner 12, but was able to recover very nicely.
He's dropped to 5th place on the splits with 2 to go. How much will he close? Great run up to the finish line, that will help, but it is 5th at the line. Ducours is in the medals, and Dave Cheshin slips out.
That was really hard. Martin Ducours laid down a really good second run. Alexander Gazer and Christopher Grotier, they're really in to fight for it.
Yep. So 300s behind Martin Ducours. Normally that would guarantee you a medal. Today, not so much.
He's not going to be happy with that. Just a little bit too much on the exit of 7 for a flop, but he relaxes nicely into it. Big skid though.
He didn't quite have the control of the sled that he had in the first heat. Maybe he made an adjustment that didn't quite work in his favor. Maybe the track has changed and the sled didn't. Well, Thomas Ducours is in the medals. He is in the leader's box with 2 to go. Took the silver medal here 2 years ago, Thomas Ducours. Next up is the second fastest man in the first heat. Nikita Tregibov of Russia, the 22-year-old. And he was 1100s fast, 2100s faster than Thomas Ducours. So he's got a lot in hand, and he has got a big, fast start as well.
You can never take anything for granted on this track, though. Anything happens on a run, hits, skids, and all of a sudden you're a second behind.
We've seen lots of athletes not able to match their first heat run.
You're definitely not guaranteed anything on this track.
Okay, so 2400s up. Let's chart the progress. He was 2600s up when he lay down on the sled, and the gap at the next clock is down to 2200. So he's stopped the bleeding at corner 7.
And I think he'll really start to accelerate right now. He had a good 6-7, and that really pushes your speed down the track. A little bit of a skid there, but nice speed out of corner 11.
Not had a World Cup medal yet on this track. Let's see what he can produce.
A little bit late into 16, but he controls it okay for a tiny tap. Across the finish line with the fastest time we've seen in the second heat.
Yeah, 2400s up. That's a big advantage for Nikita Tregibov. So the young Russian takes the lead, the 22-year-old. He's had bronze medals, 4 bronze medals since his debut in January 2015. He's never finished outside the top 10. And he is guaranteed a career high, at least silver now.
Nice quick start. He had the 3rd fastest start and the 6th fastest velocity as he loaded onto the sled.
So still some speed to come at the start from the young Russian rocket. Now let's see if he can emulate his teammate and claim a win in the World Cup. Well, the man that stands between him and victory is last year's winner, last week's winner, Sun Bin Young. And Richard Bromley, the sled builder, has a purpose-built, if you know about Savile Row suits, tailor-made to the body, and shoes that are made to perfection to fit the foot, then that's what this sled is. It is the Savile Row suits of ice sliding. It is made for no one else but Sun Bin Young of Korea.
He broke the track record in the first heat, and that was really awesome. He improved his start by 200, and he's really going to lay it down this run.
And the way he's been sliding, Liz, he could easily break it again in the second heat.
Easily, as long as he relaxes and lets it fly. He's known as Iron Man, and that's what is on his helmet.
Well, he won, yes, last week by 63 hundredths of a second from Martins Ducours, who was in the silver medal position then. And this looks like it's going to be a similar advantage over Nikita Tregibov, already half a second up.
Like you said, this sled is created for him. Richard has been working with him for 3 years. And in 3 years, they've had 19 World Cup medals, and that's incredible. They've been timing the sled, making it go when it needs to go. 77 hundredths and accelerating away, 89.8 miles an hour at the line. He claims victory for the second week in a row, the second year in a row here in Whistler. The fastest track and Ironman have gelled perfectly 2 years in a row. And he takes his third medal here, his second win in as many appearances. He won the race by 3/4 of a second. That's massive.
That is a huge performance again. It wasn't just the perfect sled for Park City, it was the perfect sled and slide for Whistler as well. The comfortable leader in the first heat, the comfortable runaway winner in the second. And Martins Ducours in 6th position, not 63, but 77 hundredths behind on the day. That was not a good one for Ducours. There's congratulations from Tregibov, from Alexander Gassner, for the man that wins our race. And did you spot an error here? If it was pretty small, Liz.
It was very small. If anything, this is an incredible line out of 7. He just really let the sled flow. He had a bad exit of 16. I would say that was the thing that cost him the most amount of time. Lots of height here.
Well, the man doing commentary for CBC, the Canadian broadcaster in the box next to us, John Montgomery, won 3 in a row here. 2009, 2010, Olympic gold, 2011. Martins Ducours has had 2 wins here. Sun Bin Young now 2 wins on this track as he eclipses the fields. Tregibov second, Thomas Ducours third. And for Grother and Gassner, I wonder whether they've done enough with those runs to qualify themselves for the German Olympic standards. It was a topsy-turvy race, but Sun Bin Young had it under control. Wow. Well, last week was definitely no flash in the pan. That sled and slider combination, which is so crucial, like in Formula One or in IndyCar racing, whatever motorsport you look at, you've got to have the right car, but you've got to have the right driver, and it looks like they're really coming together perfectly. I
think so, and Bromley has created this sled for Sun Bin. He knows his driving style and said, okay, fine, we're going to make a sled that works for your driving style. Yeah. To be able to work with Richard that closely, as you saw, he won the race by 75 hundredths of a second. That's massive. That's not just the driver, that's not just the start, it's also the equipment. Yeah. Well, 75 hundredths of a second back from the leader gets us down to Matt Antoine in 8th place. And it was that sort of margin last week as well. So Sun Bin Young, the Korean, really ripping form here. So what happens when we go to Europe? We go, first of all, to Winterberg again. Well, last year, Sun Bin, that was one of his worst results. Altenberg and Winterberg, he was 5th. But I think this year, another year of entertainment and another year of practice, and I think he's going to be a contender for gold all the way through to February. I think so, and he's learning to be a bit more confident when he's leading into that second run instead of being too tense on his sled. He's relaxed, and Richard said he sneezed on his arm before the start of the second run last week, and that chilled him out so he could set the track record.
That is the secret, and is everybody be taking snuff before the races to send them into fits of sneezing. There is no secret, is there? He's got everything at the moment. He's got the power at the start. He's relaxed on the sled. He allows the sled to do its job. At the moment, he is the machine to beat, isn't he?
And having Richard, Charles, and Yoon is a really dynamite trio.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the clouds sweeping across the mountainside here, but we got our races done nice and timely in Whistler. Race 3 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. 2 wins this season for Sun Bin Young of Korea. He's the points leader, carries the yellow jersey out of North America as we head to Europe. Martins Ducours in second. Thomas, his brother, hot on his heels after a silver medal finish here. And that is the rest of the standings. Lots of close battles up and down the order. And an awful lot of these athletes will be jockeying for Olympic spots within their national criterion and also with their own teammates. Well, for some of the sliders, the USA's Greg West and John Daly the season can only really go up. Jack Thomas of Great Britain also with a tough start to the year. But at the top of the pile, Korea's Sunbin Young, Elizabeth Arche is feeling no pain now, is he?
Not at all. He had a very smooth run, maybe a little bit from the Exodus 16, but he had a fast start and a fast downtime. He set the track record and won by 75 hundredths of a second. That's an awesome day for Korea. Awesome day for Sunbin, Richard, and Charles.
Well, look, the yellow vest, the smooth run with barely a brush on the wall. It could have so easily be Martin Stukur's, and Sunbin has got exactly that same fluency on the sled. There he is, second win in a row here in Whistler, second win in a row this season. He takes the gold medal. Nikita Tregibov, a career best silver medal. And Thomas Stukur's back on the podium, as he was here 2 years ago. This time it's the bronze medal for him. Well, not too many times that Thomas gets to beat his brother when Martins hasn't crashed, but he's done that here today. Well, that's it for the North American swing for men's skeleton. My thanks to Elizabeth Arche for joining us in the booth, to you for joining us too, and as ever to the IBS TV crew. Like the US Postal Service, they do it in all weathers, all day. Thank you guys, fantastic pictures as ever. Next time out, we're in Winterberg, Germany. I'm Martin Hagen saying we'll see you then. Goodbye for now.